Hey,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're great.
Okay, awesome.
Uh, so Jesse, I wanted to tell you this story as we're kind of letting people kind of join, but so I heard this story back in 2015 about a person that was in San Diego and they came all the way up from San Diego to Portland, Oregon for a breakfast in order to talk to their old school and just be an advocate and voice for the students there. Isn't that cool? Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, that's wild. What a coincidence.
Does that sound familiar?
It does.
What what inspired you to do that?
The first time I ever shared my story was at that same breakfast 10 plus years before that. And the time I traveled back to Edison, what's now called Edison High School, to share my story as an adult, it was really a full circle moment for me. And when they asked, I'd go in a heartbeat. I'd go again, to be able to look at parents and students and let them know that hope is possible and they have bright futures. I do again in a heartbeat. But that's so funny that you heard about it.
No, it's so awesome. I was like, yep, that's totally Jesse. All right, well, let's kick it off. We're getting people joining us. Let's just start with an introduction, where you're at now, what you're doing, what you're about, so that people can kind of just get a lay of the land with Jesse and all that she's doing.
Sure. Okay. Hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Jessie. I use she, her pronouns. I currently live in San Diego, California, but I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a lover of Oregon, and that's why I was so excited to get involved with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. I currently work at the University of California, San Diego at Six College, and I work in student affairs. So I get to do all the fun stuff, all the things. I work in student activities. So I get to do all of the activities that happen outside of the classroom. I get to help students discover who they want to be and how to apply what they're learning in the classroom outside in the real world, because that's where I thrived in my educational world. So I'm really excited, especially now in the world that we're living in, to be employed. Yay, having a job. And I'm excited to be working with you. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. And we're already getting a comment. Bring that San Diego weather with you when you come up to visit. Uh, so let's start. Where or when were you diagnosed with dyslexia, and what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with dyslexia really young. I was very lucky. I know a lot of women sometimes aren't diagnosed until later on in life, but I was just talking to my mom before this. I was diagnosed in first grade. So my oldest brother has it as well. So it's a pretty common learning difference in my family. And so I was plugged in with a specialty reading tutor from a very young age. I spent a lot of time in special education. I got my name called out and I got to go down the hall to the special classroom where we learn different things. And it it has been a journey, as you kind of mentioned, and I've been at public schools, private schools, public universities, private universities. I tried homeschooling. I did all across the gamut. I've tried it all.
Any anything that has worked better or less than for you? Like, did you find any kind of avenues that were best supportive?
Yeah, absolutely. So, small environments are good for me. So, I have an opportunity to get close with teachers. I was so very lucky to get a chance to get a spot at Edison High School, which is as I'm sure you know, hi to any Edison folks out there.
They're
And
all rooting for you, by the way. They love you.
well, I love them. That's really honestly, it's what saved me. It's what I graduated from high school at many moments where people thought I wasn't going to graduate from high school. It taught me how to advocate for myself. Lifelong friends, and those friends are the teachers. I'm more connected with the teachers I still am. In fact, some have visited me down here in San Diego, and but it was the small class sizes, and it was the opportunity to be in a place that made me feel safe, and made me feel that the fact that I learned differently wasn't wrong. My worth wasn't a standardized test score. My mom signed me out of standardized tests in the third grade because I developed such debilitating anxiety that I wasn't able to walk inside a classroom. So I have found places for myself throughout my educational journey that are welcoming and have opportunities for me to get help. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Edison taught me, was to advocate for myself, ask for help, because without that, I never would have found success in a traditional classroom. My brain just wasn't made for it.
Oh, wow. Well, that is tremendous work that you're doing now, because you're passing it on in the advocacy work that you're doing. And that just is so awesome that you learned it there and that you continue to pass it on. If you're just joining us, we're with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and we're joined by Jessie, and she's telling us her story of being diagnosed with dyslexia and then finding the right educational environment for her. But before then, what were some of the challenges, and what was that like going through those challenges before you got to that right environment?
Yeah, you know what? I think it was constantly feeling like I didn't measure up. One of my best friends, I love her dearly, we're still best friends to this day, was in the accelerated group, right? She was one of the smart kids, and I was constantly on the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think it was really hard because the teachers at the school that I was at didn't have the appropriate training or the resources to help teach all the kids that needed different kinds of support. My poor parents spent lots and lots and lots of money on specialty reading tutors and schools, and it wasn't an environment where a kid who desperately wanted to fit in and desperately wanted to achieve could. I mean, I remember my mom trying to walk through my report card and explain to me why I wasn't getting the grades that I so desperately wanted. And I eventually ended up at a Waldorf school, which was an incredible opportunity for me. They are a school that embraces different kinds of learning, but I ultimately entered in high school at a fifth grade reading level.
Wow.
I one of the painful things, Edison High School does a journaling where you journal with your English teacher and you write back and forth, and then they send them to you so kindly later on in life. And I remember reading my writing as a ninth grader, and it made me cry, kind of seeing where I was, because it's the educational system is not created for brains like mine, and seeing where I was in the ninth grade was pretty sad.
No, you got to hang on to that. That could be like the next Matthew McConaughey journal book that comes out in the next 10 years. So hang on to that. What a support system that it sounds like you had with your family. Like, what does that mean to you that they were in your corner like that?
Oh my gosh, the support system is everything. I was very fortunate to have a family that put their life on hold for me. I mean, like I said, I at one point in the third grade had such a bad panic attack that I would not get out of the car. I hid under the seat in the parking lot of the school building. And my mom put her life on hold to sit in a car so I could go to school. And she did that for years. And this was before Wi-Fi. We talk about it now, but this is before Wi-Fi and iPads, and my dad supported her and brought her lunch, and she took naps in the car. And I would go in for an hour, and then I would come out and hang out with her, and then I'd go in for a little bit longer. And you know what? I did that in elementary school, and I did it again in high school. I did it in secrecy because I was ashamed, right? Because dyslexia, and I wonder if folks watching could relate at all, but you so badly want to be successful and you're so scared of failure. I let that, or the anxiety developed so much. In fact, I just found this, I think I sent it to you. I found this Instagram account I highly recommend for all you dyslexics watching. It's called dyslexia_in_adults_. And some of their posting content was about, what's worse, dyslexia or the anxiety about having dyslexia. And that definitely has rung true to me my whole life.
What can we go back to the car? Do you know what was going through your head? Like, I mean, I know you talked about the fear of failure and the desire to fit in, but do you know like what was going in your head, like as you were kind of hiding in that mode?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you know what? That's a question I got a lot, right? I went to therapists and doctors and teachers, and they would ask me, "What are you worried about? What are you worried about?" And I couldn't give you an answer. I was just completely overridden with anxiety. And I think, going back to it again, it was because I was being told I wasn't meeting benchmarks. I wasn't passing tests. I was being humiliated at school because I couldn't, meet the bar in spelling tests. And at one point a teacher told me that there wasn't enough red ink in the world to edit my papers. And I feel for teachers. I know that they have a lot going on, but that was damaging. It's still damaging to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I had a supervisor once tell me that questions made me look weak, right? And so those moments are really damaging, and especially to a kid that just constantly was struggling to get by in the classroom. I think that ultimately just created this environment where I was so scared to go in, and it wasn't until, like I said, my mom had to do this again in high school. She sat in the Jesuit parking lot. I made her put all the blinds down in our big van so no one would see, because I was terrified. I haven't always been this like screaming proud dyslexic that I am today. And I want to encourage folks, it takes many, many, many years to get there. But there, like you said, the support system, I mean, that's why I'm everything. The mentors that I've had in college and graduate school, which is crazy. I still kind of can't believe I went to graduate school sometimes, but the mentors and the friends that I had, my parents are warriors. That's what it took. I mean, I am the product of a village of support, and that's why I've been successful.
Amazing. You sharing this and your vulnerability and your braveness, anything but weak enters in my head in terms of a descriptive word for you. Strength and courage and just the drive that you have just shows through. So I know it's a battle. Maybe just think about those words as you go through your day, because
I,
that's what I want to talk about. Grad school. What was your reasoning for going, and motives there?
yeah. Well, so, okay. So right, there were times where it was like, is Jesse going to graduate from high school? We don't know. Right. I wasn't
Right.
going to the building. And so eventually when we got to high school and we were getting through, I was successful. The reason why I was successful in high school, again, because I went to a magical high school, but also because I did leadership. Leadership is my jam. It's my passion. It's where I was able to be the kid who did a good job. It was where I was able to excel. I wasn't writing beautiful papers and reading tons of books, but I could plan an assembly. I could plan an event. I could get people excited to be there. And so leadership. And then from there, that took me, I found Southern Oregon University. And this is a public school in Oregon, and it's a small public school in Oregon. And I was able to find help and support there. And then ultimately what got me through there, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit, is about, accommodations, working with amazing support programs like TRIO. There's a lot of things that help kids, students, adults with learning differences find success. I took all of my college tests in a separate room outside of the classroom, not with anybody else. I got extended time, so I wasn't nervous every time someone set down a test, right? There's all these things that are available to you. But to be honest with you, the first thing that popped into my head was why I went to grad school. His name was Jaden Berry. He was a mentor that I had. After I went to high school, I entered AmeriCorps, which is a volunteer program. It's like the state version of the Peace Corps. And I got to create a mentor program for first generation low income. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing the comments right now, and the person just commented, oh, another one of my huge mentor support. Oh my gosh.
Oh, clap to that. Hold your thought.
Okay.
This person is talking about the warrior that you are and how much positivity and energy you bring and how hopeful you are making the rest of the world just by being you. So, Jesse, you need to know that.
Sobbing in her office in high school. I spent so many hours in her office in high school, and she put so much of her life into helping me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it does. It really takes a village. And for all the educators out there, all the mentors, like, thank you. Can't be thanked enough for all that you do.
Absolutely. And it's people like that in your life that you have to find. And it's people like that. I was just about to say, my mentor who got me from AmeriCorps, and he said, Jesse, you're good at this. Go to grad school. And he believed in me, when I didn't believe in myself.
That's it's awesome. And that's what it takes sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit of that, hey, I want to show the world what I can do. And then it's the person that believes in you to kind of push through that. So absolutely. I do want to get into this, and you were leading down that path, so I think it's a good segue. Like, what accommodations and assistive technology did you find most helpful in your schooling?
Yeah, you know what? I think the hardest thing when you graduate from high school, and this is where my passion area lies because I work with college students every day. If you're lucky enough to have warrior parents advocating for you and getting the resources that you need in high school, but when you turn 18 and you go to college, that's not there anymore. I mean, hopefully your family and your guardians and your support system is still there for you, but you have to advocate for yourself. I mean, the university legally cannot talk to your parents about you. And so that's why my biggest piece of advice to parents is always fight for your kid, but then teach your kid how to fight and advocate for themselves. Because that is what's going to take you the farthest in college. You have to, when you turn 18, the state thinks you all of a sudden don't have dyslexia anymore, so you have to be retested, which is a hurdle that you'll have to work through. And I was retested, and surprise, still dyslexic. So I got paperwork that I registered at my university, and the assistive technologies, I don't want to spend too much time on because I'm old now, and there's so many better ones that exist now. But the ones that I took advantage of were extended time on tests, a separate room. I always went to my professor's office hours. I was a part of a TRIO program that helped first generation low income and students with disabilities. And I had an advisor that sat with me for hours trying to build class schedules that were doable for me. So I wasn't having, a biology class and a writing class and a chemistry class all on top of each other. Oh my gosh, I had a panic attack. My first biology class, left the room, didn't go back. Right. But there's people in place there, instructors in place there that if you seek it out and you ask for help, there's a chance that you'll be successful.
Yeah, that's amazing. On that note, I wanted to ask you, so do you still have challenges as an adult with dyslexia, and what does that look like? Because I think some of the people, even in students, they know it doesn't go away. So what, as an adult, like, what are some of the things that you deal with on a day-to-day?
I'm so excited that you asked me that. So I was thinking about this today, Jared, and when I logged onto my computer, because I'm working remotely from home, and I was writing my first email of the day, right? We all live in our email. And I was writing it, I was going, getting ready to send it. And then all of a sudden the red squiggly lines flashed on the screen. And I'm always like suspect when I don't see any red squiggly lines because I can't write anything without the spell check line. But I was like, okay, cool. I'm drinking my coffee. And then all of a sudden, like, the computer was lagging, so they weren't live, and like the red squiggly line, and I was horrified. I was about to send that email, right? Because I don't see that I spelled the words wrong. I don't see it, right?
Right.
So, through and though, manager and manger, like, forget about it. Quite quiet, like, I have no idea. And so, especially working in a world of academia, I get so much imposter syndrome, and I get so scared that people are going to think that I'm not smart. And I think that's one thing that's not talked about enough, right? We don't talk about dyslexia in the workplace, or, we talk a lot about it in high school and in younger grades, but we don't talk about it in a professional setting. I was talking to one of my previous students who had a friend come up to her, a colleague, and talk about some insecurity she was having being dyslexic in a professional work environment. And, it's really lonely and isolating because, we're constantly fighting to show that we're smart. And the fact that I might send you an email riddled with typos, although I promise you I've read the email that I sent to you 20 times before I sent it, it's hard. I procrastinate when it comes to my yearly evaluation and I have to write a whole big old document about myself. I put it off and off and off because anything that requires a lot of writing is still terrifying. And again, like I said, I went to grad school. I wrote lots of papers with a lot of help.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because I think it's really important for our listeners and you to hear this. This thing is real. people like Jesse can read an email. People like myself can read an email 5, 10 times. Intellectually, we are very capable of having conversation. Sometimes there will be spelling mistakes on our email or in our posts. And that has nothing to do with intelligence. And those that would ever evaluate Jesse, I'm going to say this, those that would ever evaluate Jesse on her ability to spell as her intellectual capacity or her ability to do a job would be a lazy evaluator.
I'm very fortunate, I will say, that I have phenomenal support at my job, and my supervisors are amazing. But I want to change, but that's what you and I, like the conversation that we're having, we have to change the dialogue for other people.
Right. And so let's jump into that because you posted on this and talking about how is it, what can we do to kind of support adults and change the culture around this thing?
Well, I think, yeah, like what you and I are doing now and having this conversation, and to ask folks, think twice before you go on your tirade about what grammar issues bug you, right? I've been in conversations where people, are going off about what grammar issues bug them, and I'm just, oh, are you still there? And I'm just feeling
Yeah, I got you.
so less than and terrified. Or even, I've had students make comments or jokes about spelling, or like, oh my gosh, if a marker comes out and a whiteboard and it gets handed to me, no way. I mean, that is my actual biggest fear, right? uh, and so I think we have to have these conversations and teach folks, how can we create inclusive work environments for all different kinds of learning?
I love that. That's so powerful, Jesse, what you're doing. My nieces are on following this, and the word that they would probably use to describe you is queen. Just means just super warrior for those that are in need. So it's just awesome what you're doing and the advocacy that you continue to bring. What message do you have for educators on the line? What would you like them to know?
For educators, I think one of the biggest hurdles for folks with disabilities are standardized tests. I mean, the SAT is still used to measure the intelligence to get you into college. And I took the SAT and I had extended time, and I was picking bubbles. I was picking A for my friend Annie and B for my brother Brad. And it meant nothing to me. It didn't measure my intelligence. So if I could beg the educational system to rethink how they define, how they measure people's success. I went to graduate school because I applied to 7 schools that didn't require the GRE. I didn't take the GRE, wouldn't have taken the GRE, and if I did, I wouldn't have done well on it. And so I'm thankful now that we're beginning to think as a society how we begin to measure people, right? And so I hope that they can prioritize teacher trainings and honor and respect the fact that there's more than one way to learn, and the language that you choose to use matters, right? Special education to all of my teacher friends out there who are working in special education, it's so important, and I hope that we can find more inclusive ways to teach all different kinds of brains. But my biggest thing would be to get rid of standardized tests so we can take down that barrier and let folks realize that they can still, conquer and achieve, even if it takes hours and hours and hours of more work. A test doesn't define who I am or what I'm capable of. I'm telling you, my test scores were horrific, and I'm doing okay.
Absolutely. No, they don't define who you are. And I always think too, like we need to get to a point where we're not using grades to eliminate people from taking electives or going to recess or participating in sports and art and music and all the things that you're talking about right now. So
that's so sad.
You were so complimentary of Edison, and I want you to know that I was able to connect with some of the educators there, and they just feel that you're such a rock star between the administration and the teachers that you encountered and what you do for that school. They fully are, they're on Team Jesse, so you need to know that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I like that.
So the rule on this show is that you as the guest get the final word. You get to, your message, your ending thought. It's you to finish out the day or evening.
Gosh, that's so much pressure. And of course, I'm going to, okay, so I'm going to say two things if that's okay. Um,
Absolutely.
One, if we didn't explicitly say this already, I'm super thankful, Jared, to be talking to you and working with you, and I'm really excited to be co-creating a professional network for adults with dyslexia. We're building it, Jared and I, and the folks at the International Dyslexia Association Oregon are working together to build a virtual network for us to come together as adult professionals and discuss ways that we can be successful and share tips and tricks and ways we can navigate classrooms or work environments. We want you to feel that you're not alone. You're not alone as a kid in school. You're not alone as a student in a college classroom, and you're not alone in the workplace. And we have to normalize that. So you'll be getting opportunities to come talk live with Jared and I tell my students all the time, I know we're in a really difficult time as a nation and we're remote, but it's awesome because I get to connect with Oregon all the way down here from San Diego. And so we're able to create this virtual network and give a space for all of you, I'm seeing some medicine sophomores. Hello. Our efforts are going to be targeted at adults, but if you're getting ready to graduate or you have graduated already, please connect with us. Follow this Instagram page. That was my like shameless plug for our work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then lastly, I think my final word would be that dyslexia doesn't end when you turn 18, and that it's all about figuring out who your support system is, learning the tools, and share your story. Share your story with other people so they don't have to feel like they're alone.
Absolutely. Jesse, one, it's an honor to be your teammate on this deal. I'm so excited to be working with you. I'm so excited that you are supporting the Oregon branch and giving back to your home community. And for those online, yeah, follow Jesse. We're going to be doing some really fun stuff and just building a community where people can come and not feel alone. That's what we're about here. That started with our student panel. That was their mantra, and we're carrying that through the top of the organization. So talking about managing up. Jesse, thanks so much for taking the time tonight. I know you got other things to be doing, and so we appreciate you jumping in on this call for a Monday, and wish you all the best. Know that wherever you are, San Diego, your journey around the world, Oregon is 100% behind you. The community of Edison is right there with you, and just know that you have so much support out there.
Thank you so much, Jared. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon.